Hello and welcome to Top Greens. I am your host, Philip Amrine, sitting alongside
Gareth Boucher. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's as always a pleasure to have you, Gary.
You know, this is the first week I haven't had a trusty beer right next to me for our podcast, and it's kind of, I feel kind of naked and empty right now. It's
well,
really
empty
sad.
for sure. Naked, I can assure you.
I am fully clothed.
I would be a little bit more.
That would be a very special episode.
That would be a very
Greens.
uncomfortable episode for me. The viewers are non-existent outside of me, but the listeners would be fine. They'd be like, they would know no difference.
So how do they know that we have been clothed through everything?
I will assure them personally that we have both been clothed this whole time.
Not Luke, though. Not Luke.
Yeah, Luke's a little weird. I will say, let me start out the podcast today with this. So, about 2 years ago, I went to the Chicago Art Museum. I was in Chicago visiting a friend, and I went to the Chicago Art Museum. And, of course, when you go to an art museum, there's paintings, there's statues, there's displays.
Environments.
Yes. And I bring us here to say that when I went there, I saw all these different array of art.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, there was a Japanese display. There was the lily pads, of course. I believe there was a replica of the painting and just everything. And I'm passing through, doing my due diligence, doing the thing. And to be honest, that's not my thing of going to art museums. It was just I so happened to be there. And for whatever reason, I was in a room and I saw this painting and it was displayed, and it was called Love and War, and it showed I believe, Roman woman and a Roman soldier. The woman representing love, being fair and in a milk light, and the man garbed in Roman attire. And I was just so entranced by it that I could not take my eyes away. It made me stop in my tracks when I normally was going from room to room, just taking it all in, just going, okay, there we go, there we go, there we go. And this one made me stop. And I just, again, could not tell you why. I could not tell you what made it so special, but I just stopped and I could not gaze away. I moved on to the next room, and then I just realized, you know what, no, I had to go back. I got to go back.
Something about it. You can't stop thinking about it.
Exactly. And so as I go and I watch this, it really reminded me
of that.
Of the land of Z, the lost land of Z.
Lost City of Z.
Lost City of Z. It just really reminded me of that time where it's this artistic element, and for whatever reason, it just totally draws you in, and you feel as if it's a pop-up book where you're just you're looking from afar and you realize it, but it almost brings its own environment to you.
Yes.
And that's where I want to start, is the Lost City of Z.
That's how you know a movie's a good movie, when it can bring out a random sense memory like that out of you. You're like, oh my gosh, this makes me feel like the one time I was in Chicago and saw this painting and it was amazing.
Yes, it was all surrounding in itself. And the movie just came out last week. It's
kind of under the radar. I hadn't really heard about it until I had not heard anything about it.
Of course, Charlie Hunnam plays the main character, Percy Fawcett.
Yep, it's a true story.
It's based off of the best-selling book that is based off of a true story.
Yes.
So that is absolutely 100% true. Of course, Robert Pattinson.
I haven't seen him in. I was like, oh,
I know.
You have a giant beard now. Great movie beard.
Great.
It's gonna make the list of top 10 movie beards of all time for sure.
Maybe at a later date, but that's a subject we will cover. He played Henry Costin.
Yep.
Sienna Miller plays Nina Fawcett, his wife. Excellent role for her in this one. And then, of course, Tom Holland.
Spidey Man.
New Spider-Man, who will be pegged as the young Spider-Man, plays the son, Jack Fawcett. Yep. So,
great young actor.
Yes, let's go in. I don't really want to synopsize this movie. I just really kind of
It's a long movie.
It is.
Yes, So I don't know about you, but I went into this movie thinking from the trailer it was going to be about like a singular exploration into the jungle, like maybe like more of a survival adventure.
Thinking Jurassic Park, but without the action.
More of like maybe like a slowed down true story Indiana Jones kind of feel.
The Medicine Man.
Yeah, but it actually this movie encompasses like 30 years in this man's life, from when he's a young army major to when he's got like a 20-year-old son. It's really it's a classical 2.5 hour, definitive 3-act character study. So it goes through a lot of highs and lows, a lot of different environments. It's not just probably like maybe half the movie at most takes place in the Amazon, and the rest is in England and various places.
Yeah, and really, it's in vogue of the old exploration movies where it's almost it has that documentary feel. One of my biggest complaints of this movie, even though all in all, I feel that it's much of a painting. It's very artsy. Yeah. It has that artsy-fartsy feeling.
It's not like artsy in the new like indie sense. It's artsy in like the classical stuff that was made in the 40s and 50s.
For example, where they go back to another time of movie telling.
Yeah.
And unlike La La Land, where everything was a reference, but it's set in modern day, where they're trying to renovate an old genre.
Yeah, this was just using new, trying to make an old.
Yeah, no, it's trying to use new methods to relive an old vision of storytelling, and one of my biggest problems with the film, albeit I liked it, one of my biggest problems was in creating that environment. I don't know that the first act of this movie fully developed the characters for me. Now, I'll say that when you have the Amazonian jungle and a rainforest. Mm-hmm. If you don't use it, you lose at your own peril. And this movie used it as fully as it can, whether it gave us vibrant colors, whether it surrounded us naturally without using this 3D stuff that we see nowadays. It surrounded and kept us engulfed in that area. And my biggest complaint was that, and yet it's also a compliment, is that they surrounded us with this nonstop rainforest music that you can download on your app on a phone and just go to sleep on. Like it's classic rainforest, you know, like a toucan in the back going, yes, and it's...
We just put some people to sleep right there.
Oh, somebody's snoozing and then now they're waking up! But no, it had all that, and I felt like in that essence it was good.
You're just saying the first act right now.
I'm still in the first act, but it drowned out what they were saying. And while
you felt like you couldn't hear what they were saying?
I couldn't understand what they were saying, because while, let's take for instance Charlie Hunnam again, Percy Fawcett, the main character. While I loved how crisp his voice was and how succinct he was and how I could hear all those consonants, a lot of that middling in a sentence was lost from me because it was being drowned out by the environmental surrounding music.
I actually, I remember thinking about that when I was watching it, but it wasn't, I felt like I could hear him fine. For me, it was Robert Pattinson's character, and because he also plays kind of like a mumbly drunk.
Right.
But then when you put like ambient, like you know, like a rushing river over that, you're like, what? But it didn't stick out enough to me to make it like a super big problem. I think that
why it became a big problem for me is because it's supposed to be, the first half of anything is supposed to give you exposition to let you know where you are in the story, and especially in a movie here that just hopped from time to time. Like every 10 minutes you're at a different time. Like, we're all of a sudden 5 years ahead of the future.
It's definitely, it's not like it's hopping back and forth. It's all linear, so it doesn't like crazy confuse you.
Right, but it's still jumping ahead. I was thinking to myself through constant points of the movie, they didn't even need to put the year down. They just needed to say later. Because it did not matter.
Well, maybe because they're following a true story and they want to stay accurate to what he did. They're going to say, it's 1916. Now he's...
To be honest with you, though, multiple times I forgot it was 1911 previously, and now it's 1913 or 1915, and surrounding that was World War I. So you have to keep those timelines very clear. I get that, but. Just in viewing the whole movie, and I'm putting myself in the movie and not trying to research it per se, it played around with the timeline, just very liquidy.
There's also a very like strong element of the classical style of filmmaking, like. Now we have gone to 1915. You know, like all those old long 3-act films, like in the 50s and 40s. You know, when you encompassed a man's life, that's like what you would do. You would like, and this is in the style of those movies, jumping from when he was 20 to 25 and now 30 and stuff like that.
And you know what? I did like a lot of the visuals. Of course, we're incorporating the rainforest itself, and many of the shots that were taken, I think. did that justice, and especially when they're flowing down the river, you can imagine the difficulties in capturing shots like that and successfully doing that. Even there's a scene where they fall into the river and piranhas are eating a man.
Yeah.
And while that's a thrilling moment and it's not perceptually dramatic or what have you, it's more of the action sequence of a movie. I actually think it did it justice. It was murky and you couldn't really tell that they were fish, but you could
see like a black cloud swimming, and then just shows on top of the water, just like a little bit of like a red cloud dissipating. You're like, oh, some dude just got torn apart by a bunch of freaking hungry piranhas.
And you felt really invested in and put into the film.
Yeah.
A lot of the times with how, while it did itself no justice, the film as a whole of drowning out a lot of the vocals. You really did feel with them, and I applaud them for getting you into the ambiance, that environment with the characters, because a lot of the film is dark. Because you're in the jungle where there's no street lamps, and it's just dark outside of the one flame and fire you have next to you at night. So I applaud them for that.
They definitely use the most out of their environment. There's nothing
much like The Revenant, where it's all natural,
it's harsh, lighting. And there's nothing in the film that screams like best cinematography to me.
But I mean, there was a couple shots, like when the first moment we see Robert Pattinson and he's drunk and he puts
the underbelly of the ship and the
correct. Charlie Hunnam's character drains out the remaining liquor in his flask. Yeah. And we see the liquor flowing down through the sink. That was actually in and of itself a great shot that takes place outside of the rainforest. It kind of
reminded me of the cinematography of like Spielberg, where it's not like groundbreaking and world class. And every shot serves a purpose and tells the story, and you don't need fancy lighting and crazy indie camera angles. You just need to frame your environment, and every shot moved the story forward, and that's what they did. Like, it's very classical, once again, going back to that, linear and, wide shot and gritty in the jungle style of filmmaking.
Yeah, it was it had moments where I thought you could really feel involved in the movie.
I credit that a lot to Charlie Hunnam, actually.
Yeah,
his performance.
Okay, that's where I wanted to go. So let's go.
This movie is not as good without him.
And that's what I wanted to know, because at first I thought he was... I wasn't as impressed with him. It's not a really standout performance in the sense of it's not a big showy role. It's not like...
he doesn't take these crazy dramatic highs and lows, but he steps into this character's skin and he puts
a very neutral character
to this legend. It's neutral, but it's believable. And now, like, I've never heard of Percy Hewitt.
No, his character's name was Percy Fawcett.
Percy Fawcett. I'd never heard of this man, but now, I mean, for me, Charlie Hunnam brought him to life very believably and very
you could see a lot of those choices where it was a military man, and he most of the times he was standing with his arms crossed behind his back.
Yep.
I thought that he was technically, in a technical sense of acting, he was technically sound, and again, goes back to the crispness of how he spoke.
British, high, refined.
Yes,
I was almost Irish.
There was never a time any of the three leads I felt dropped out of their character. Even Robert Pattinson, props to him, because when you're associated with Twilight, I'm already putting you at a disadvantage.
He has totally done the whole so he had a career low when he found out Kristen Stewart was cheating on him with his director. With her director. He had a career life low, and then he hates being associated with Twilight, so he stepped back, and now he's like, I'm going to do more significant, dramatic work.
Well, he did what any self-respecting actor does. I mean, look at the road paved by Charlize Theron, where she was typecast as a beautiful ingenue, and she wanted to be more than that. And
break out, do more dramatic stuff.
While she remains to be that if she so chooses, she now can be a top-notch actor. And I think Robert Pattinson, when he grows out that stylish
top 10
beard,
movie beard, that's a big beard.
You really have to take a moment, because
I didn't know
you don't recognize him right away. You kind of remember,
it's nothing like skinny
Robert Pattinson,
babyface Edward Cullen.
No, and so he's trying to distance himself from that natural look, and I give him a lot of credit, because this was a hard movie it's a very natural, organic movie where a lot of the time it would be almost hard to garner the audience's attention, but they do it dutifully.
It's crazy because you would think it's kind of long and slow moving, but I was never bored.
There was no pacing issues.
No,
you were totally
it was
invested.
all moving forward, and that has to do with, once again, Hunnam's performance, and then just the craft and the ambiance of the movie. Like, you're totally enveloped, and like I could have watched this movie for like 6 hours. I was so like interested in this guy's story.
Well, that's a little much.
I love this dude's story. And like the environment of the film, I was totally into it. And it ended, and I was like, oh, I wanted to keep going. Like, it was
completely believable. And this week we had a choice because we were going through the list as we normally do of movies that we want to research and do for the next week's upcoming podcast. And we had a choice between Born in China, Disney's movie, nature movie, which we had
probably totally awesome. But
yeah, it would have been a different realm for us personally to review because there's no acting in that.
We're reviewing a documentary film.
Yes, it'd be a documentary, so that was something. And bringing it to comparison in this film, I think that they did justice in bringing to life that environment because there were a lot of times that you were just totally incorporated, and it was all believable. And especially, I think, what made it so interesting was just the amount of issues, sociological and survivalist.
Very true to the time. It's really interesting. I thought that this was going to be like a freaking imperialist film, like glorifying colonizing like indigenous people, but then our main character Percy is very like anti-imperial. He tries to empathize with these locals.
Yes,
but then like an hour into the film, he and his wife have an argument, and he's like super big on gender roles because this is like the 1910s, and he's like
men and women have served their roles
all throughout history, and so he's a really interesting protagonist, and it does respect the time period because Percy was like considered progressive with his pro indigenous people views, but then he was also pro gender roles. So I thought that was really a real layer.
Right, but to also add to his credit, they even when they're having that discussion in their bedroom concerning the roles of men and women, even though he put them both in their stereotypical roles, they also brought up to the point that at home, they consider themselves equals in minds.
But not equal in body. Yeah,
right.
That was his thing.
And I think that's honestly an issue that we still have now, we still might have in the future, and for all of time, because it's one of those things that is debatable. It's almost why we have separation of basketball for a league for men and a basketball league for women. There's softball compared to baseball. I mean, just in the realm of sports and something that I'm more accustomed to, there is that separation. Even though they're playing the same thing, we don't see them at an interface because of supposed physical limitations and abilities.
I mean, if it's a team sport, I get that. But as far as like exploration and like hiking and mountaineering and discovering and exploring, I mean, women are perfectly as capable, because that's all in tune with your body weight. Like, are you in good enough cardiovascular condition to carry yourself in a pack for a few dozen miles a day? That's a little bit different, I think, than basketball, football.
Well,
that kind of thing.
It also depends though, because at that time it was exceedingly. I mean, it's always dangerous to go in the middle of the Amazon. You can go right now in 2017, and you could still be eaten by a freaking snake, or just be licked by a toad and just pop over and dry up like a raisin. I mean,
seriously.
Yeah. So I mean, I can understand him having a hesitation towards incorporating his wife.
She wanted. I mean that. I mean, if his son went, and I bet you his wife was more prepared than his son, but that's just like in the time it was like, well, it's dangerous, and so why would we take a woman to a place that's dangerous?
But then also think about this though. I mean, even though it was his son had no further responsibility. I mean, what I was thinking of was, man, just as a person. Man, if you both die, because you have to think of the worst possible scenario. If you both die, those children are being raised alone, and I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know.
Put into the British evil foster care system of the 1930s.
Right, please, sir, may I have some more? No,
go to your room, Charles.
But if I can't imagine that even back then, explorers. Excuse me. I can't believe that explorers garnished such a wage that it was livable. I mean, and they even had to be funded on these explorations and expeditions in order to make them possible. So I don't. I'm not sure how these children will survive. So that's where I'm saying that this movie draws a humanistic element, even when it's based in exploration, even when we're trying to explore the Amazon, and when it's a movie that is about the jungle. You're always, at least for me, when I'm watching this, I'm wanting to go back to that jungle because you kind of get the main Percy Fawcett's yearning for the jungle because it's artistic, and that brings us to the ending where. The last moments of again, spoiler alert. I don't know.
Spoiler alert! Go watch the film.
Yes, it's
but it's not really spoiler alert because this is like a true story. He disappeared in the rainforest, and this film just kind of fictionalizes what happened when he disappeared.
Because especially back then, there's no way to truly know. I mean, you're just you have to put a bow on it. And
if you want to read an interesting story, go read in the region. All these different tribes have these different myths of what happened to Percy, and multiple tribes have claimed to have killed him, or multiple tribes say that like he became like a cannibal chieftain. Like he's like a total myth. I've seen that theory. It's really cool.
I truly believe it.
I mean, he's probably
Chief Fawcett.
He's chilling now with Tupac, Marilyn Monroe, JFK.
If he's still hanging out with Tupac, a lot more people would be cannibals if you had that longevity of a life. But when we go towards the actual absolute ending of this film, and not just alluding to their deaths. Which even then it was so
surreal.
Actually, let me take a step back there and actually address that. It was very Hitchcock-esque when we think of suspense, because this whole time there's really no action going on, but yet with that illusion and alluding to their imminent deaths by being in unknown foreign territory with indigenous peoples that are unfriendly, unlike what we've seen in the entirety of the movie.
Yeah. They ran into a nasty tribe.
Yes, they did. And with that, just being defenseless and being helpless, it's very interesting to see how throughout that whole time, you're biting your nails.
My stomach was churning when they had them both kneeling on the ground, and you thought that they were gonna like cut their throats or something. I was like,
the whole time, especially when they're preparing them to take them down to the lake.
Yeah, it was the most beautiful death scene like I've ever seen.
It was very artistic.
Artistic, yeah.
But when they're preparing these two people, because the two men, Percy Fawcett and Jack Fawcett,
his son, 18-year-old son,
have taken one last journey to the jungle, and they're being prepared because they were captured by an indigenous tribe. They are being prepared to be killed in some way that they're just alluding to. And when they're being prepared to be killed, they're kneeling down in front of a fire, which is set throughout the jungle. There's a lot of bonfires and torches that light a pathway, and it's very dark, but yet with the torches and everything, it's very artistic. And when they're being prepared, they're rubbing leaves on them, and
they have them drink this juice that kind of like knocks them out and makes them kind of woozy.
Puts them in a haze. Yeah. And throughout this whole time, it's very little dialogue, just some between.
And you hear like in the background like the chanting and the like kind of beautiful singing.
Again, the ambiance, right? Yeah. That's what we talked about earlier. That jungleistic environment, nature sounds.
Jungleistic.
That's
a good adjective.
Fantastic. and so they're preparing them, right? And they're rubbing them with leaves. This whole time, I'm on edge, Yeah. And like you said, your stomach's churning.
I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? Oh my God, they're gonna get brutally murdered.
Yeah, they're freaking rubbing the leaves on them, and I'm like, there's gonna be a knife somewhere popping out. I mean, somebody's just gonna.
But then they don't. They raise them up, and they slowly carry them down the steps towards this lake, and then it just kind of fades out, and you don't know what happened. I mean, it's implied that they die, but it's so peaceful.
But throughout that whole time, until they leave that scene, you cannot get rid of that non-artificial, fully realistic tension.
Tom Holland looks at his dad, and they kind of both say their last words. He's saying, "I'm scared. I love you, Dad." And his dad is like, "We've made it farther than any man ever has. No man has the same story that we do. Like, look how much we've done. Like, we've accomplished so much
in this lifetime that even though you're younger than me and I've lived to be this old,
he's like, we've seen sights that no man's eyes will ever see." And it was,
and it's so really, beautiful. It's just, again, it brings in that whole outside sociological thought of how do you now deal with death, and you know it, and you know that you're going to die, and yet it's this drawing out of a inevitability, and there's no way out. It's so incredibly thought provoking, and yet all in all despairing, because you throughout the rest of this movie, I didn't necessarily care that they were going to die, but now that they added that humanistic element of it's him and his son, you just completely invoke that emotionality.
So Tom Holland just starts breaking down and crying, and I was like, oh no, they're going to die.
And yet you see Charlie Hunnam draw upon that stoic bravery, that call it craziness or lunacy.
The jungleistic bravery.
And in that moment, and I think that that's really where I appreciated Charlie Hunnam and Tom... Well, maybe not Tom Holland, but Charlie Hunnam's Percy Fawcett acting chops, because I saw earlier moments when he's talking to Angus McFadden's character, James Murray.
Mr. Murray.
Right. And they're...
Great little performance by Mr. McFadden.
Mr. McFadden, Angus McFadden.
He turned out he was a despicable little villain. I loved it.
It was a very nuanced villain, and even though it's not,
he was a British Victorian villain.
Right, the very regal, royal, above you air to him. And when they're having a confrontation within the room, Charlie Hunnam's reaction to him, I felt, was completely... It would be how... It felt totally natural how outraged he was, and at the same time being regaled and being stoic as a military man would be, and keeping his composure. And yet it was... You could still see and feel and empathize that outrage. And it was in those two moments that original argument and the ending preparing to be brave for your son... it was in those two moments that I thought were his finest technical showcasing of his talent.
Yes, and I mean, it's impressive because Charlie Hunnam is probably, 28, 30 years old?
Somewhere around there, very young.
Yeah, but he played a man up until he was like 45, 50. He's got obviously... I
think it was around 60 if we
60 even, wow. But I mean, and he's got very convincing makeup on, it was awesome. You know, he played a man through his whole life. And when you shoot a movie like this, you obviously shoot it out of order. And so staying in context with the linear story when you're shooting it out of order and putting in a great performance like that, especially with like an ending death scene when you've gone from 20 years old to 60 years old, really, really impressive.
Yes. So, all in all, your final rating.
Rotten Tomatoes, out of 100.
Out of 100%, what percentage would you give it?
This film, I was thinking about it after I left the theater. Its air lingered with me. I saw it 2 nights ago, and I woke up this morning, and I was like, I saw a really good movie 2 nights ago. I really liked it. So it stuck with me, and I would love to see it again. I'd give it like a solid 88. 88 out of 100. 88. Yep, it's not...
You are so incredibly hard of a rater.
Are you going to give it more than that?
No, I'm not, but I just wanted to say, if you really loved it that much, you'd only give it an 88.
I mean, I didn't think it was like the best movie ever, but I enjoyed watching it quite a bit.
I give it about a 70.
70?
Yeah, because for me, more so than not, that beginning, I feel like I lost a lot of the story, and maybe it's just I'm hard of hearing. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But if maybe I had subtitles, so that way I could really know a lot more of the characters and what they were saying, because that beginning first act for me, it was a little sleepy. It was a little... there was a lot more of metaphorical knowledge I felt that I just wasn't getting. And while on the one hand, I don't want you to force feed it to me, on the other hand, I should be able to understand.
If it goes over your head, you're like, oh...
What's the point of it if I don't understand it? If I don't understand what you're alluding to? Yeah. So, with that, even though it was a very enjoyable movie, I don't know if I would necessarily go out of my way to see it again.
Yes.
So it's a very passable movie. I love the environment. I loved Charlie Hunnam's performance by himself. His performance himself, I would give... top notch, but
maybe a dark horse for an actor nomination, at least a Golden Globe.
It's really early for that if we're actually talking Oscar.
I'm making predictions on my blog. I'm already starting it.
All right, well, you go ahead and you predict away. It'll be wrong, and we'll come back to the end. Just like the NBA playoffs, you'll be wrong. Which actually leads me to give me 5, because I have an NBA question for you.
I got 2 NBA questions for you.
Oh, this is great for our movie audience.
Awesome.
All right, well, I'll have a little word from our sponsors, and then we'll get right into Give Me 5, all right?
Let's do it.
Time for some personal rejuvenation? Visit Aquarius Salon's award-winning stylists and get ready for summer. They do color, cuts, and highlights for your everyday wear, as well as services for proms, weddings, or any special events you have scheduled. Visit Aquarius on the northeast corner of Bell and 51st. Call 602-978-1774 for your appointment. Again, that's 602-978-1774 on the northeast corner of Bell and 51st. And tell them Philip from Chopped Green sent you. And we're back. Welcome to Gimme 5. This is the part of the show, of course, where, Gary, I've got 5 questions for you. You've got 5 questions for me.
Tell me right now, are you going to have Uber facts?
No, I'm kidding. There's no Uber facts. I wanted to give you a week off, especially with Maddie not here. It's not as fun without Maddie. But,
yeah.
And it takes a lot of work and dedication to get all those together. I have to use a lot of brain power to come up with the fake facts.
To make a fact that sounds really real, that most of the time sounds like too good to be true, like it's such an interesting fact.
I'll tell you what. Next week, I'm going to see if there's a real fact and a fake fact about coffee beans, and I'll
coffee
see.
Beans. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm calling my shot right now. You're not gonna know the difference.
You don't think so?
No.
I'm a trained barista. I know all there is to know about coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Let's do it.
All right. I will let you go for the first question here, Gary, and head off.
This is an opinion question. We didn't touch a lot on Tom Holland, but he was obviously featured in this week's movie. He's also super known now for being Spider-Man, the 20,000th incarnation of Spider-Man in the last 6 years.
I was gonna say, is that a good thing? Like, if you're Batman, it's notable.
Yeah.
But if you're Spider-Man, is that a good
thing? That's really the fault of the studios for let's reboot. Okay, let's reboot.
So you're saying it is a good.
Reboot.
You're saying normally it's not the fault of the actors themselves. It's more It's more just the studio.
Each of the last 3 actors has had something to bring to it, and that's my question for you.
Okay.
Who is your favorite Spider-Man of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and now Tom Holland, which we've only seen 20 minutes
I was gonna say,
but I think he's gonna do a good job. He's an interesting little guy.
You know, I did like what I see. It's just, for me, it's too early to call it. So I will put a hiatus, and it could very easily change on Tom Holland.
Yeah.
But let's go, wow, that is
Tobey
nostalgia versus actual acting chops. Now, Andrew Garfield.
Tobey Maguire is a good actor. He's my choice. I'm just saying that right now.
That's why you know what I'm going to go? I'm going to go with Tobey Maguire because even though they both aren't that good at crying, and we have that discussion all the time.
Uncle Ben.
Yeah, Tobey Maguire, when he cries, is just, now that I watch it as an older person and more experienced, it is so funny.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the one with Dr. Octopus, is the quintessential awesome superhero movie. It hits all the notes. I can watch that movie over and over again.
And it leaves us with the best joke of the series.
Which one?
Earlier we found a $20 bill wrapped in a red rubber band on the floor, and we just wanted to let everybody know that we found the red rubber band. If anybody needs to find it.
Oh,
so,
God.
That is my favorite. Let's go with Tobey Maguire.
All
right. Go, Toby. And my question now. Gary, the EDM band, the Chainsmokers.
Okay.
You familiar with the Chainsmokers?
Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, we don't have to pay for these rights, ladies and gentlemen. No.
It's such a bad cover, no one's ever gonna know.
So ladies and Yes. All right, yes.
Yes, I do know them.
Okay, they played in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Sunday night. However, a spelling snafu has forced them to incur the wrath of the internet. The band had a lighted sign hanging behind them as they performed that read, "Thank you, Pittsburgh," without the H at the end. It's "Thank you, Pittsburgh," without the H.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's seeing that visually would make me kind of uncomfortable.
And if you live in there, it'd be like Arizona without the A or something.
Yeah.
Arizona.
Thank you, or it's if you spelled Phoenix with an F. Thank you, Phoenix.
Yes, some of those in attendance tweeted out the error, captioning the photo with replies of, "Thank you, Chainsmokers." Gary, do you have any words that you just cannot seem to spell to save your life?
Let's see. There's one.
There's some cinnamon, or for me, or
I am a writing major, and one word always gets me, and I feel like it's available, or anything that has an AI
Oh, yes.
So is it a VAI or is it AVAI or AVIA? I always mess up on that. I can and Microsoft Word has like autocorrect, so it always corrects me.
Thank God for autocorrect,
but
right?
like if I were like writing by hand, I suck at words like that.
You know who I'm impressed by are people like the original founding fathers of the Constitution.
Yeah. Ooh,
without a spelling check on that thing, could you imagine?
It was great.
You have to get it perfect.
You have to like white out.
You have to write it legibly, and you cannot
Another
go
one
back
I just
and
thought
replace
of
that.
the word address. Is it 2 D's, 2 R's, 2 S's? Is it what
2
is
D's,
it?
2 R's, 2 S's.
Address.
There we go.
That's one I can never get down either.
All right, there we go. Your turn, Gary.
All right. Question, a little bit of NBA time. Talking about a guy a little bit earlier, Gordon Hayward. If you guys don't know who this guy is, look him up. He's a super fun player to watch, and
I actually have a question about that concerns Gordon Hayward later on, but go ahead.
Really? You have a Gordon Hayward question too?
Somewhat.
Okay, this is a question just about him. So he kind of reminds me of a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who's made a very quiet but very steady ascent.
He's been very quiet. Is that what?
Quiet.
Oh,
a very quiet but steady ascent.
Dirty.
To role player to playmaker to like best player on his team. Mm-hmm. And my question to you is Gordon Hayward in next season? He's obviously not as good as Kawhi, who's like an MVP candidate.
Right.
Is he going to be like a top 10? Like when we talk about the best players in the NBA, you think in like 3-4 years is Gordon Hayward going to be in that conversation?
Ooh, you know what?
He's gotten better and better and better, and he's got the great size. He's really athletic. He's got great skills.
You know what? My question, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. Where is he picked in the draft?
He was picked like 3rd or 4th.
Okay, so he was pretty high up?
You would think it went pretty high, yeah.
Okay.
He went to Butler. That's when Butler had their crazy run.
Right. Was that with Steph Curry?
No,
it was a team
not
after?
in the same year. Yeah, I think it was a few seasons later.
Okay. So to go to your point, I think it's very hard to quantify where he is, but when the NBA talks, when you hear what all the heads of companies and heads of teams are yearning for, what they'll say anonymously is that they're looking for an American-born player, a white American-born player, so that way they can branch out to that demographic.
It's interesting.
Say what you will about it, whether it's right or wrong, that they're looking, if they could have their druthers, Michael Jordan would have been white, because it's somebody that would have mass appeal for whatever have you. So the reason why I bring that up is I think that right now he's the best American white player in the league.
Yeah, because usually like when you talk about the best players who have white skin, they're almost always European.
Yeah, we're looking at Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah, Steve Nash.
Steve Nash.
He's Canadian. Yeah,
and
no, there's hardly. I mean,
the only other one I can think of is Kevin Love. Yeah,
Kevin
JJ
Love,
Redick.
Ryan Anderson.
Not really anybody up there.
That's about it.
Gordon Hayward, Kevin Love, I think is the actual the two that you can maybe debate.
But basketball is definitely an African American sport, which I mean, Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan at face value. I couldn't imagine him any other way.
Right. And I think that he'll be paid like a superstar regardless of whether or not he is. So we'll see if he leaves this offseason as a free agent, if he leaves the Utah Jazz to go somewhere else, and maybe he replaces Blake Griffin in the Clippers, or I don't know what
I've heard that the Heat are going to try to reach out.
Oh, that'll be interesting. They'll have Goran Dragic.
Goran and Gordon.
And both White and Hassan Whiteside. Interesting dynamic. And then they have whiteout games where they try to. That's a very interesting sociological study that we could draw.
Pat
there.
Riley is a recruiting king. He
is.
I mean, he's Pat Riley. He's always going to be.
Lays down the rings. Do you want one of these bad boys? Come play for me.
To Miami.
Yeah, it's probably really old and grisly.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
I'm in blame. All right,
Batman. Patman.
Harvard University, Gary. Researchers say they've discovered a second parchment copy of the Declaration of Independence. We were talking about this earlier. The Boston Globe reported Friday, researchers Emily Sneff and Danielle Allen found the copy in a records office in southern England. The only other parchment copy is maintained by the National Archives in Washington. So this leads me to ask you, Gary, if you could find another copy of an item of historical importance, what would it be? Would it be an Egyptian sarcophagus, maybe a box of tea from the Boston Tea Party, or maybe a Mongolian bow and arrow from Attila the Hun? What would it be?
You know, I was raised obviously in American Western culture, and I'm not religious now, but I was raised in the church, and I still think biblical items like have so much significance. I think it'd be really cool to have like
the original 10 Commandments.
I was literally gonna say the stone tablet. 10 Commandments. I mean, if those exist somewhere,
you won't be able to read it though.
But I mean, it's just like the freaking 10 Commandments. Like, come on, like that's so cool.
But that would be such an obligation to, because if you have those in your house and you are sinning, the rules are displayed right there, sir. You cannot sin in this house.
How many pieces of pie did you have? 2. Thou shalt not lie. The tablet said.
Yeah, I mean, really, it would help to raise kids, but other than that, it's really it makes you feel bad.
Or if you had like the freaking Lost Ark, you know, maybe some Indiana Jones stuff happens.
Yes. Cover your eyes.
Our faces start melting.
Yes, that's true.
That's a no. You have
in case. Hey, can you come over later tonight? I want you to see something. All right, your turn, Gary.
Whoa! My phone's freaking out. Here we go. Got it back up. Is it updating? No. I'm sorry. Here we go. Found it. I got one more NBA question for you, Philip.
Fantastic. Hit me.
Pretty much like the last 5 years, if you are asked the question, who's the best point guard in the NBA, the de facto answer is Chris Paul. It's Chris Paul.
Prototypical point guard, yeah.
But I'm asking you, I'm going to get a little contentious here. Is Chris Paul the best point guard in the NBA anymore? Because, like, hear me out. This is a guards league now, obviously.
Well,
I mean, even if everyone's got guard skills, big men have guard skills now. I mean, you got a guy like Giannis who's a guard. James Harden is a point guard now. You got Davis. Russell. You got Steph Curry. You
got to be able to handle the ball. That's for sure.
If everyone's a ball handler and a playmaker now, and then our point guards have elevated the game so much. You know, we've got James Harden, who led the league in assists, who is now like a point guard. He shared the ball great this year. Russell, Steph, Kyrie. Obviously, Chris Paul's still up there, but is he the best point guard anymore? Because I think he's kind of past his prime at this point.
Well, I think if you look at it, who are in contention for it? It's really Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Isaiah Thomas,
Westbrook,
Damian Lillard,
Damian Lillard, not so much this year, but like he's top 10.
I think that what you look for, John Wall, yes, actually. If I was to go and look for, if I wanted to start my franchise, what am I looking for? I'm looking in durability, most importantly. So for me, that takes Kyrie out because I'm not sure from year to year how he is.
He still hasn't held up as well.
He hasn't held up as well, and that's just a personal preference. Top talented player.
More of a playmaker than like a true point.
I'm looking for size, so that takes out for me Kyle Lowry, a little bit of an undersized guard for his position.
Thomas, like 5'9".
Right.
Take him out.
Isaiah Thomas for sure, because really you're then stuck with him, and I like versatility, and that's why I would take Isaiah Thomas out because I can't put him at the shooting guard as well or switch them out. That's one of the reasons why I like Patrick Beverley, because he has the size to switch with James Harden.
He can guard a few and he can guard forwards in the league too. He's so aggressive.
You know what I'm gonna go with actually here, and I just thought about this. I'm gonna go with Mike Conley. And now
is the best point guard, or who you would start a franchise with at point guard? What do you like?
Well, the reason why I like him is because he's not as a hot commodity as the others. So if I'm thinking logically here, and there's 30 other chances and 30 other draft people who would pick before me, I'd imagine that if my first pick is Andrew Wiggins or something of a much required commodity that will not be there later, and I had to go then follow that up with a point guard, Mike Conley would definitely be there. And I'll tell you what. Definitely durable. Consistent and a defensive point guard. And he assists excessively well. And he has a good court vision that I can really appreciate. And I'll tell you what, he got a lot of flack for being the most expensive player in all of history.
For one day, he was the highest paid player ever.
And you know what? Looking at in the playoffs this year, they are pushing the Spurs and giving them all that they can. And it's totally full of. They gave him the highest respect when they put Kawhi Leonard on Mike Conley, and he is earning that paycheck. So just for me, I'm gonna go with Mike Conley. He's a little younger than Chris Paul, and I think he definitely has a defensive mind, and he sets the tone for the rest of that team in a defensive team, and he really took that reign from Zach Randolph. So. All this to do about Mike Conley. So go Mike Conley.
Interesting choice.
Yes. Gary, moving from the NBA to the New Yorker has an interesting article out. Adam Sandler has a new film out per his agreement with Netflix, which means his new movie, Sandy Wexler, is exclusively out on Netflix. However, this article makes the argument that Adam Sandler is a vastly talented actor who is a victim of his own success, which generally keeps him working in a wan comedic mode with directors of little inspiration. This got me to think about how I felt about Adam Sandler movies, and I realized I love both The Wedding Singer and 50 First Dates, and enjoyed multiple other movies of Sandler's if only he weren't in the starting role of the movie. I'm gonna look at Click or something. Yeah. I love that movie, just wish Adam Sandler wasn't the main guy. How do you feel, Gary, about Sandler, and is the New Yorker right that Sandler is a vast talent just misdirected?
Man, alright. So Adam Sandler, this is like a Pandora's box here. Alright. Even like his best movies, like in context of all cinema, are kind of bad movies, but like I like them. They're like a guilty pleasure of mine. Like The Waterboy, Happy Gilmore. Obviously, like I love 50 First Dates, even like Click. I have like good memories of watching Click for some reason when I was like 10. Recently, I mean, his work has just been trash. But he did a movie called Punch Drunk Love.
Yes.
With Paul. I mean, and that's
one of the examples that they cite in the article that look at what he can do with a director.
But I was gonna say that was with Paul Thomas Anderson, who's a really prestigious director. So he was like dramatically in that movie. Adam Sandler was really good, and when Adam Sandler's acting at his best, he's obviously goofy Adam Sandler with like a little bit of like dark comedy spin. When he's at his worst, it's like Jack and Jill. So I don't have any hopes for his career. I don't see him like coming out and like in 5 years and being like this actor who has like a change of heart. I think he's stuck in this awful cycle of getting paid crazy amounts of money and making great returns on terrible movies.
Right.
So
Jack and Jill, by the way, and I don't even know Pixels. This whole thing, that is just awful.
This whole like pack of David Spade, Kevin James, Adam Sandler making just god awful movies lately. Like I think that at one point in his career, maybe right when Punch Drunk Love came out, he could have taken his career in a totally different direction. But he was like, well, where's the money at? Grown Ups 2. Let's make Grown Ups 2.
Just as a quick aside, I actually liked Grown Ups 1. Because I went in there having no expectations, and I actually found it quite humorous.
Yeah,
like it just had like little pops of humor.
If you can like sit back and just be blindly entertained.
Because I expected nothing. I knew about Adam Sandler, and I was like, this is going to be completely awful. And I liked it a little bit more than I thought. So when I was forced to go see Grown Ups 2 in theaters, I was like, okay, this actually won't be as bad. And when Taylor Lautner is the best and brightest spot in a movie, it's awful. Awful!
It's not Shark Boy and Lava Girl. That's a great film.
Yeah.
Better
4D.
Better than Jack and Jill.
Yes. All right. Interesting discussion here. All right. Your turn.
Not see that one coming. So, big news today out of ESPN. They just fired/laid off dozens of their workers, citing the fact that cable news viewership has gone down tremendously. They're keeping their main people.
This is ESPN, you said?
ESPN,
okay.
Because they're getting more into the...
Cable cutters.
What's up?
Cord cutters.
Cord cutters, yes. And, you know, HBO has HBO Go, Cinemax has Cinego. They're making, like, their version of, like, ESPN Go, where you can go and get SportsCenter, like, on an app.
Right.
And so cable TV viewership has obviously gone way down with streaming. But it's weird with ESPN because sports are obviously something that like you want to watch live as it happens. I don't have much interest in like recording a game and watching the whole thing. So, part A, do you watch a lot of cable TV? And part B, what's your prediction for the future of live sports? Because cable viewership has plummeted, but like live sports like the NBA and the NFL are at like all-time high viewership. So it's kind of a contradiction.
Gary, this is an excellent question.
Let's hear it.
This is an excellent question because I will tell you, they have to find a way to actually gain revenue or actually measure what their click viewership is. Because the way I see it, this whole testing the market in the NFL that we've seen, the places like Amazon, Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, you name the big online streaming places, they are going to stream the games from now on. I'm thinking that in 10 years, 5 years, maybe even.
We're gonna
see Clippers versus Jazz in the playoffs on Amazon. We're gonna see.
That would be awesome because that's the only thing I hate about not having cable TV in my house is that I can't watch live sports.
Oh yeah, no. To your point and what you asked originally, I don't even have cable.
Okay.
I remember a couple months ago when I wanted to see it was a Conor McGregor fight. I just watched it on Periscope on Twitter. Somebody was live streaming it, and the statute of limitations is hopefully out there, but. I think that's where they're going to have to move towards and find revenue in that source. It's almost the same revelation that sports teams have found in actual attendance of games, where their biggest source of revenue is no longer actual gate and ticket prices. It's now TV revenue.
Deals. Yeah.
So they're going to just have to update with the times and find a way to monopolize and make money off of these Amazon, Netflix deals, and that's the way of the future. Mm-hmm. God bless them. All right, Gary, 537 days, 2 hours, 49 minutes, and counting. NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson flew through the standing record for cumulative time spent in space by a U.S. astronaut at 1:27 a.m. EDT on April 24th. And with the recent extension of her stay at the International Space Station, she has 5 months to rack up a new one. Now, after launching on November 17th with 377 days in space already under her belt, she surpassed astronaut Jeff Williams's previous United States record of 534 days, 2 hours, and 48 minutes of cumulative time in space. All right, you got all those numbers?
Yes.
So, Gary, I'm offering you a free ticket to spend 2 years out in space. Do you take it?
2 years.
2 years removed from everything on Earth. Just you floating around space.
Oh,
watching, eating a Twinkie and then it squirting out and it going to the other end of the spaceship.
I think space is interesting, and I think that maybe like at the end of our lifetimes, like space travel, maybe even like colonization or space visits or spacecations will be like a thing. But I don't think I would want to go for more than like a few weeks or a month tops. Like 2 years, space is terrifying. That's like being on a submarine for 2 years. Like if that cap opens and you're out, you die because of the pressure. And space is the great unknown. I'm still very uncomfortable. If you're gonna ask me, would you go live on like a moon colony for 2 years?
Right. Go harvest cheese on the moon.
Yeah, like that's cool. But like to be like on a space station for 2 years, like all cramped, I don't think I could do that.
Fair enough. It's kind of like for me those studies where they forced a guy to be in bed for
70 days.
70 days.
I saw that. He got paid a bunch of money, but like it destroyed his body.
And he completely went almost crazy.
Yeah.
All right, your turn, Gary.
Alrighty. So, Chris Pratt, one of my favorite people.
This is your last question, right?
Yeah, last question. Pratt. Chris Pratt came out and in an article he's talked about how he has a rule with himself. He doesn't take selfies with fans anymore.
Really?
Because he got tired of people coming up to him, and he loves talking with fans, but people would come up to him, maybe say hi, and then pose for a selfie, and then walk away, and he wouldn't like connect with people. And he said, I'm Chris Pratt, I can share a beer with anyone, but I'm tired of people taking a picture of me and posting it and not even talking to me. So upon further research, a lot of actors are doing this no selfie thing. Emma Watson, a few others I can't name off the top of my head, they're big on this like, I feel like I'm a zoo. People come up to me, they just want to show their friends, hey, this is my face and this person's face in this photo, and that's it. And they're not talking to fans anymore. And so a lot of people are saying no. Benedict Cumberbatch came out and he said, people need to stop taking pictures of everything, put the camera down, and just like be present in the moment. Which is, I used to take
very
pictures.
Very
actory, right? Which is, I actually started doing that because I went and saw a concert and I wanted to film it on my phone, but instead I just watched it. And I think I had way more fun.
Right.
So what is your opinion on the kind of always pulling out the phones, taking pictures like in this digital sharing information age? Like, do you prefer if you go to an event to film it and take photos, or do you want to put your phone down and take it in?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, Gary, when I go see something, I'm trying to work on it, but I'm trying to be more socially active, but within that, and social media-wise at least.
Yeah.
But really, it's never been in my nature. I'm very old school in that kind of thinking, or it's just not natural to me. While I'm trying to keep up with the times and keep up technologically. I don't want to become a dinosaur, you know. I try to connect with everything, but at the same time, I whenever I go see a movie, whenever I go see a concert, whenever I go see something, really, you're paying for that experience. And most of the times, I feel like if you're removing yourself just to take footage of it, it's that whole society newfound image of picture or it didn't happen, right? Yeah. And so I think that the selfie...
You have to take a video of the band and share instead of just watching the band now, you know?
Well, I think that the selfie is now becoming, for celebrities, it's the new autograph.
Yeah,
I'd imagine when autographs first came out, whenever, you know, in the 20s, hey, I'm Gary Grant, and I'm going to sign your little quill thing.
Bring me your napkin, sir.
Yes. They will, where that used to be the big, you know, hubbub, and everybody finally got along to it, to where it then expanded onto writing autographs on, you know, movie posters or different sports memorabilia. I think what it's now becoming is, again, in that mentality of pics or it didn't happen, the selfie is now the new autograph. It's you're now getting, I was with Billy Joel, here's a picture of it. Even though
which is cool because it's also very it's more personal than an autograph. It's like, oh look, our faces are pressed together, it's really cool.
Even though Chris Pratt is probably just mid-sentence and saying something and now he looks bloated and it's not a very enlightening picture of him, but yet there you are, smiling and like, ah! And they're just there, and it's Morgan Freeman, who probably doesn't look his best at that moment. So, me personally, I'm a no on the selfie, but I think that's where it's going. So, you can fight it, or you can go with the times. I say selfie away. All right. Okay, this is going to be a big one, Gary. It's my last one, but it's a bit of a game. So, I was perusing Twitter last night during the Clippers-Jazz playoff game, and I found a Utah Jazz fan tweet out that they wanted to buy a Gordon Hayward jersey. But they wouldn't, because he feared that Hayward might leave in free agency. This got me to thinking, Gary, what is the logic in buying a current jersey? Your favorite superstar might leave and become a bigger name elsewhere, i.e. see Shaquille O'Neal in the Orlando Magic. Why not just always buy a throwback jersey so you are always in style? So I have a bit of a game here. I'm going to go down the list of all the teams quickly, and I'm going to give you just enough money to buy one jersey from each team. And I want you to tell me whose jersey you choose to buy, and we'll compare and see if my theory proves true.
All right.
Because, of course, if you answer the wrong one, I'm the right one.
Okay.
Okay, I just want you to know that, Gary.
All right, let's do it.
All right, here we go. First one. Atlanta Hawks. Who do you buy? Whose jersey do you buy?
Atlanta Hawks. Spudwed.
All right, I'm going.
Or Dominique Wilkins.
I was gonna say Dominique Wilkins is probably
Dominique actually,
because really,
but Spud is like super.
But you don't get my reoccurring theme here. That's gonna go is you don't get that first name. And I think Spud is a cool name, but you don't get Spud.
That's
you get
Webb. But Wilkins in 21. That's pretty classic. It's pretty
much recognizable. Sure. And if you go now, who do you even go? You go Dwight Howard, maybe.
Ken Bazemore.
Yeah, who knows? All right, Boston Celtics. This one's a hard one.
If I'm going Boston, I'm honestly either Paul Pierce,
right,
or actually Bob Cousy.
Really?
Bob Cousy.
I'll tell you.
That would be a cool throw. I guess Larry Bird.
I was going to say Larry Bird is mine.
Out of all those three, Larry Bird, for sure.
Because for sure, for me at least, if I'm trying to get my girlfriend to get any interest in sports, I'm getting her a Celtics jersey with Bird on it because she loves birds.
There you go.
I'm just trying to find a venue in which to get it.
It's a bird.
She has no idea, but at least it comes off as a respectable, like, oh, she likes Larry Bird. I mean, goodness gracious, she's a sports fan, and so she'll have that respect, right? Honorable mention, of course, Paul Pierce, like you said, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, maybe.
KG is going to be my two.
Okay. Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats.
Charlotte
because
Hornets.
They move. Some of these teams move, so. And let me. This one's hard because even right now, who do you even say on that current team?
I'm actually gonna pick. Oh man, old Hornets players. Larry. What's his last name?
Sanders?
No, he's a.
Here, do you want me to give you mine?
Yes.
Alonzo Mourning. Who
am I? Charlotte Hornets. Larry Johnson.
Okay.
Larry Johnson, the thunderous dunk master.
Yes. All right, moving on. I got Mourning just because I think that's a funny, just as a name.
Mourning with a U?
Yes. Okay, easy one. Chicago Bulls.
Jordan.
There's really, I mean, you could go Butler, but really you don't. No. Well, for me, one of the
vintage
things,
MJ jersey.
There's really no other.
There's else.
No other, and there's nothing else. 23 Jordan. All right, Cleveland Cavaliers.
I'm gonna have to go with the throwback LeBron James.
Yeah, it's LeBron James. There's no other name here.
It's his town.
Irving, maybe.
No, LeBron.
Love, maybe. If you're like if I'm thinking of my girlfriend and I'm just trying to get like a love thing. That's it. Dallas Mavericks.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah, sure. There's really nobody else. Even now, I mean, well, he's playing now, so that's the advantage you have there. Hard one, Denver Nuggets.
Carmelo Anthony.
Even though he left and he's kind of associated with the Knicks now.
Yeah, I think that Melo is still their all-time best player.
All right, here we go.
Or maybe Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf.
Exactly.
He's got a cool name.
Say that 5 times fast. Detroit Pistons.
Rip Hamilton.
Really? I'm going to Isaiah Thomas. Yeah,
well,
right there, yeah. I got you.
But I mean, honestly, or like even like Ben Wallace would be a cool one too.
But like with Detroit Pistons, do you even go Andre Drummond or
no? I mean, if I'm thinking I mean, those guys might fall out of an all-time great list, but I mean, Isaiah, Ben Wallace.
You have to stick with the classic there.
Yeah.
All right, Golden State Warriors. Now this one's hard. I want to see who you pick before I give mine because
honestly, at this point, I think he's already made his mark as the best shooter ever. So I'm gonna go with Stephen Curry. I'm surprised if he leaves Golden State. Actually,
that's hard because he is going to free agency this year, and there's rumors about maybe a Charlotte Hornets kind of thing because he's from Charlotte.
You can always do like Brent Berry.
Right. I went Steph Curry, but you know who the honorable mention here for me is? Wilt Chamberlain. You forget, but he was part of that Golden State Warriors.
Oh, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah. Houston Rockets. Do you go with the beard? James Harden?
No. Well, actually, Houston. I'm thinking. I'm actually gonna go with Yao Ming.
Yao Ming.
Yes.
All right. You're gonna shoot yourself for this one. Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon.
I still think Yao. I mean,
you still would go Ming?
Yeah, just because he's the only really awesome Asian player in NBA history. Like that's kind of cool.
How dare you, sir? Jeremy Lin is a treasure trove.
I love. Oh, I'm not wearing I was wearing my hat earlier today. I have a vintage Jeremy Lin Knicks throwback hat. I love Jeremy Lin.
Okay, well we have a couple chances later on to pull up Lin. Indiana Pacers. Now this one's really hard because we've got Lance Stevenson,
Reggie Miller.
Yeah, I put Reggie Miller too because Paul George. It looks like he's leaving. So
yeah, you got to go Reggie Miller. I mean,
I went with Reggie Miller. Los Angeles Clippers. This one was hard for me, but I finally settled on somebody.
Blake Griffin.
Oh, I went Chris Paul.
Really?
I did go Chris Paul.
I thought Chris Paul for New Orleans almost, but
I think he's done more for Clippers now, and he's kind of established himself.
I remember when I was.
And besides, like I said, Blake Griffin might leave. He might go to Oklahoma City. I mean, I
remember when I was playing basketball in high school, though, and I was getting really into it, like staying up watching Blake Griffin highlights. Mm-hmm. Like he changed dunking, so I'll stick with him.
Okay, fair enough. This is really, really hard. The
Lakers.
The Los Angeles Lakers. You have a long list of people you can go.
You look on the back, and you can see Johnson. You can see Abdul-Jabbar. You can see Bryant. I'm going to go Magic Johnson.
My honorable mention is Magic Johnson, but you know why I don't pick him is because you don't get Magic. If it's Magic on the back, it's absolutely a done deal.
So do you pick Abdul-Jabbar or do you pick Bryant?
Who I picked? I actually picked because for me, Bryant is a little blasé as well. Yeah. Even though, and besides, which number do you pick? 21, 24?
Or 8?
Or 8.
Yeah.
You know, it does. So you got to, and then Abdul-Jabbar, I just that's a lot, but he is good. I went with O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal. Because I like that O'Neal, and I think it actually carries a lot of weight, and I think that's when he was at his best. And he just got a statue, really cool. All right, this one's Memphis Grizzlies.
The Grizz. Ooh, maybe like a throwback. Because they used to be Vancouver Grizzlies.
They did.
And then they switched
to Memphis.
Honestly, I'm going to go with Gasol.
Yeah.
Because they had Pau Gasol. They had Pau way back, and that was a cool jersey.
So are you going Pau though? Are you going Pau's number or are you going Mark?
I'm going like old school throwback Pau.
Okay, I went with Mark. Gasol.
Mark is I feel like that he's a better player
a
now and more central to the organization.
Right, I think he's going to also stay there, so you have that in there. Miami Heat.
Wade.
You're going Wade. I went with LeBron James
Rookie
as well.
Wade. Really, LeBron there? I would
just-
go. I mean, Miami's Wade's town. You know.
Yeah, well, I love for the Bulls. I'm going with LeBron James, the king. All right, Milwaukee Bucks.
The Bucks. I'm
The
going
Milwaukee
with
Bucks.
Alcindor.
Okay.
Lou Alcindor. Before he was Abdul-Jabbar, he was selected by the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that a Lou Alcindor jersey would be really
The
cool.
Milwaukee Lakers.
Is that who
Yeah.
they were?
Yeah.
But I mean, so it's not the same franchise, is it? Because that was the Lakers franchise in Milwaukee.
Right.
So I have to pick a Bucks player.
Yeah, Milwaukee Bucks.
Ooh.
That's really hard.
Who you got?
I've got.
One of yours.
I put Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek
Honestly-
freak. Because honestly,
It's only been 2 years, but like seeing that name.
he is so good that you can project that. There's no way that one, they're letting him go, and for two, you can see him being the focal point of the league. Once I think he has the chance to be the next. At least Kawhi Leonard. I mean, at least. I could even, dare I say, LeBron James. But he's a building block, and I think that he's going to be around in the playoffs for a while here.
You could do Oscar Robertson.
Oscar, the Big O.
It's just kind of a generic name, but I think seeing Antetokounmpo is really cool.
Antetokounmpo.
That's a good choice. I'll go with
All
that
right.
too.
And here we go. Minnesota Timberwolves.
Kevin Garnett. For sure. KG.
He's my honorable mention, but I'm going to go Karl Anthony Towns. I like the name Towns at the end,
Yeah,
and I mean
Anthony
you can go
Towns.
Wiggins, I guess, but I don't see him. So far he's not living up to the hype.
I have like a 2002 Kevin Garnett like T-Wolves throwback jersey. It's really awesome.
He didn't win anything with them, and neither has Karl Anthony Towns yet, but he's so good.
That franchise is like pretty much always doomed. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but personally, I attribute Kevin Garnett more to the Celtics.
Really?
So that's just because he won there, and that's when he kind of was nitty gritty.
Yeah.
All right, Brooklyn/New Jersey Nets. Jeremy Lin's playing now. Do you go Linsanity?
I don't go Linsanity.
Bohawk Linsanity?
I have a Jeremy Lin New York Knicks jersey, but for the Nets, I'm actually going to have to go with Kidd.
Yeah, Jason Kidd. Double the D on Jason Kidd.
Double D's on
Double
Kidd.
D Kidd, all right. New Orleans Pelicans, formerly the New Orleans Hornets.
I'm going to put Paul.
Chris Paul?
Yeah, I picked Griffin for my LA Clippers. I'm going to do Chris Paul for the Hornets.
Oh, I'm going with Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis?
I do see a good projection there, and I don't think they're letting him go for nothing.
He is under... Oh, he was. I mean, now that he's hurt, he's kind of fallen off the radar, but he's still like a top 5 player for sure.
Oh, for sure. Next, Oklahoma City Thunder/Seattle Supersonics.
Ooh, okay. I forgot about the Sonics. Well,
yes.
Sonics, you got to do Sean Kemp or Gary Payton.
Right.
But I'm still Durant.
Yeah, for me it's Kevin Durant. He just did so much in his career there. Maybe it inches out to be Russell Westbrook, depending on how much of a figure he is, specifically with Oklahoma
I mean, if
City.
he keeps this up, like, holy cow.
Yeah, and if he wins another MVP, even if he never wins it all, he could just be such a central figure to them.
Same thing with, like, Nash and Phoenix.
Right. Next would be the New York Knickerbockers.
New York Knickerbockers. I like saying Ewing on the back of the jersey.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Ewing.
He's an honorable mention there. But actually, going against my rule, I'm going to stick with Porzingis.
That is fun to see.
For it's the white unicorn, I think that he projects out nicely, and I think he's the real deal.
Yes.
Orlando Magic.
Shaq.
Yeah.
Or McGrady. Shaq.
Yeah, I'm going with Dwight Howard. He was a beast during his time there. Actually took them to the finals.
Yes. Single-handedly, like, going to the finals with the center is, like, unheard of nowadays, but they did it with him.
Yeah.
Him and, like...
That's back when he was Superman.
Hito Turkoglu, yeah.
Turkoglu, yes, Turkoglu. God bless Turkoglu. Philadelphia 76ers.
Iverson.
Yeah, I went with Iverson too. Honorable mention there is Julius Erving, though. Dr. J.
True. I mean, that is a cool-looking jersey. The old, like, Philadelphia Flyers.
Oh, yeah. Phoenix Suns, Steve Nash.
You gotta go with Nash.
The only other one is Charles Barkley, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he could also be a runner-up for the 76ers, too.
Yeah.
You gotta go Nash.
Portland Trailblazers.
Trailblazers, Drexler, Clyde the Glide.
Yeah. I had Bill Walton as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Just because of what he's kind of done post thing, and he actually won a championship with them. But I'm gonna actually go with Damian Lillard.
Lillard is a cool name.
I like it, and I think he's gonna do some great stuff there. I like his moxie. Sacramento Kings. You know which one I'm picking?
Vlade Divac.
Yeah. No.
I picked Divac. I'm serious. I picked Vlade Divac.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you are so wrong in this. I'm picking not from my heart, not on my head, but I'm picking from my nose. Boogie. Going DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh. I think that Divac is a national treasure.
But you know the one you're missing though is Oscar Robertson.
For the Kings?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yes.
Oh.
There's nobody else on here. It's San Antonio Spurs. Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan, yes.
Yeah.
Or, Ginobili is kind of cool, though. That's a cool name.
Yeah, the balding spot, though, kind of gets it.
You need some Rogaine.
Toronto Raptors.
Carter, for sure.
Vince Carter, for sure.
I like
Bosh.
DeRozan or Bosh.
Or Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
You could see either of those. Utah Jazz, the Postman.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Malone,
actually, it was Malone,
John Stockton.
Stockton or Malone.
Who do you pick?
Stockton, all-time leader in assists. I'm going with him.
I'm going with Malone. I'll pick Malone. Finally, Washington Wizards. You have a choice of Jordan if you so choose.
The old Jordan.
The old flabby Jordan.
Who are like some old Washington Bullets players like way back in the day?
I to be honest with you, I just picked Wall because I just think that he projects out to be nicely and honestly, I like. I think he's a very good. In earlier we talked about Mike Conley being my favorite point guard. John Wall's actually got he's got the size, the speed, and he's got the shooting power to go out nicely in a Washington Wizards career.
You know who else played on the Wizards? Gilbert Arenas. And he was like
at the
big
time that was a very big contract
in the mid 2000s. Since I already picked Jordan, I'm actually gonna go edgy here and go with Gilbert Arenas.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
Bite your tongue, sir. We're never talking NBA. You've lost your license to talk NBA.
Just like he lost his license to carry a weapon.
Too soon. Too soon.
Oh.
All right, that'll wrap up. Give me 5. And next week we're going to be watching The Circle.
Yes.
Tom Hanks, Emma Watson, and this is not Beauty and the Beast.
No,
this is two beauties because Tom Hanks is
a
beautiful actor.
Futuristic technological thriller.
Yeah, I think it's like a spin on Google, Facebook, something like that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to kind of raise awareness to what you're giving up.
Privacy technology, all that public technology, ethical stuff.
And supposedly this is one of the last, if not the last, Bill Paxton
movie. Yeah.
So we're looking forward to see that.
Yes.
And so we will go and watch the rest of this Boston Celtics Chicago Bulls game.
Yes.
Hopefully the Bulls win because I have told Luke numerous times that the Bulls will take it. I believe in the Bulls.
Incredible.
And
Chicago.
And I want the Raptors to lose horribly in this first round. So we'll go watch some NBA action. And The Circle. Yes, not The Circle of Life. So we'll go watch. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. This has been Philip Amrine sitting alongside
Gareth Boucher. Thank you for coming along.
And we'll see you next week. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week. Keep tuned to watching and listening Chopped Greens for all your green needs.
Bye.